All right, welcome back everybody. Sports and Money, Ben Parker, talking about Russell Westbrook today. He just announced a couple of days ago he did in fact sign that 5-year, $205 million extension with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the celebration is on at Oklahoma City. Winners are everywhere, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're also going to talk about the fact, how can the Oklahoma City Thunder afford all these stars for the upcoming season? We'll get into that a little bit, and what it might mean for Russell Westbrook and the team coming up, not just this season, but over the next few seasons as well. First of all, let's start with the obvious. Major props to Russell Westbrook. He made a decision that was right for him. I've heard a lot of people trying to judge whether or not he did this for himself or for the city of Oklahoma City or for the team, whoever. Listen, Russell Westbrook did what was right for him. 5 years, $205 million. Obviously, he's comfortable in Oklahoma City. He's comfortable with not only the place, but with the team and the organization. And major props to him, as he did what was best for him and for his family and his business dealings as well. Major props to Presti, the general manager for the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's had to put together a lot of things. The Paul George deal, the Carmelo Anthony deal, and then trying to come up with the money as well to sign Russell Westbrook to this major deal. One forgotten guy here is a man that really has been hated a lot over the past decade and 15 years, and that is the owner, Clay Bennett. The way that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be able to afford all three of these stars, that is Carmelo Anthony, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and even Steven Adams, is going to be making $22.5 million during the next couple of seasons, on average over the next couple of seasons. It's a tremendous amount of money. The reason that the Thunder are going to be able to afford all these players is simply because Clay Bennett reached very deep into his pockets and is going to be paying a large amount of money to the luxury tax system in the NBA. Now, in some leagues like the NFL, you really don't have the option to even do this. It's a hard cap. You really don't get the option to try to come up with the extra money to put a lot of stars on your team. In the NBA, you do. You have what is called a soft cap, and by that, it means there is a cap limit, but you can go over that. Once you're over a certain luxury tax threshold, you can keep paying players as much as you want, but for every dollar that you're over the luxury tax threshold, you have to pay quite a bit of money into the luxury tax system. Now, next year, the Thunder figure to be at $136 million, roughly, on the cap. The cap for next year is sitting at $99 million, and the luxury tax line is at $119 million. So they're going to be over the cap by about $37 million. They're going to be over the tax line by about $17 to $18 million. Again, all these numbers are rounded off, and none of these numbers are final. They're still crunching some of the numbers on that, but these are estimates. So they're going to be over the cap by a tremendous amount. Now, being over the cap, over the tax line, by $17 or $18 million is going to result in possibly a $30 million fee for owner Clay Bennett to pull up out of his pocket. So these are all conversations that the Thunder have had over the past several months. And listen, for Presti, this was not a hard decision. He had nothing to lose. You've already let James Harden go a few seasons ago. You've already lost Kevin Durant. For the Oklahoma City Thunder, if you watch Russell Westbrook walk away, then really you are going to have to hit the reset button. And no matter how good you've been at drafting in the past, there's no guarantee that you're going to be that good at drafting superstars in the future. Even if you could draft superstars at the consistent rate that you have been in the past in the future, then you're still looking at a number of years before you were anything close to relevant. So for Presti, really his future with the Oklahoma City Thunder was probably on the line with the ability to get Russell Westbrook to stay. He was able to do that. Congratulations to Presti. But the guy who's not getting a lot of attention in all this is Clay Bennett. Now, for those of you who don't like Clay Bennett, totally understand. He pulled the Seattle Sonics away from Seattle, brought them down to Oklahoma City, and there's a number of people who didn't like that and didn't like the way that went down. But for the Oklahoma City Thunder, he really did not pull any punches. He pulled out all the stops in order to get Russell Westbrook to stay, and in order to get a number of superstars there. Now, we still don't know exactly how big a factor Paul George coming to the Thunder and Carmelo Anthony coming to the Thunder was in Westbrook's decision to stay. Was it just the money? Was it just the organization? Or was it there, in fact, showing a commitment to try to bring in these stars and surround Westbrook with these stars? Now, there's no guarantee that Paul George and Carmelo Anthony are going to stay. Even if they do stay, there's no guarantee that they can really form a championship kind of team, but certainly it will be an intriguing look this next season. The intriguing part, though, is after next season. Is Paul George going to do what Russell Westbrook actually did and sign on for a contract there in Oklahoma City, or is he simply going to use Oklahoma City as a stepping stone from Indianapolis to Los Angeles, which is really where he has publicly stated months ago that he wants to be in Los Angeles. Now, LA could not prove a big enough lure for Westbrook, and another winner in all of this is really any kind of a mid-market team in the NBA. If you are Milwaukee, if you are any of the other Indianapolis, Indiana, any of the small market teams in the NBA hoping to keep a superstar that you've drafted, to watch Russell Westbrook stay in Oklahoma City for that kind of money, or for whatever his reasons were for staying, it is a big deal to watch that happen. Even the lights of LA, which was his hometown, Westbrook's hometown, by the way, and was really a great place to develop his brand, was not big enough to pull Westbrook off to the Lakers. So that's a win for all the small and mid-market teams hoping to keep superstars in the NBA. But back to Clay Bennett. At some point in the past, Presti and Bennett and the other members of the Thunder organization and the Thunder ownership program sat down. They had these conversations about whether or not they were actually going to pull out this kind of money, because this $30 million, you don't get anything back for that. That's $30 million that gets sent to the league, and a large part of that money gets divided up between the other teams who didn't cross the luxury tax threshold during the previous season or the previous 2 seasons. So this is money that you don't get anything back from. In addition to that, in bringing Paul George in and Carmelo Anthony in, you traded away a large number of assets with your draft picks and some other good players. So this was a very large risk for Clay Bennett in terms of putting out this kind of money. There were no guarantees. Even if they paid everybody this amount of money for the upcoming season, there were no guarantees that any of these players were going to stay. Westbrook could have walked. Paul George could still walk. Carmelo Anthony could still walk. No guarantee that any of this was going to pan out. But really, for Clay Bennett, this was the only way to go. If you wanted to keep Oklahoma City relevant for any time in the near future, if you wanted to see them stay a real part of the basketball, the NBA landscape, if you wanted them to have a serious team for any of the next 5 years or maybe beyond, depending on how things unfolded, this was the way to go. So major props to Clay Bennett for coming up with all this extra money to try to get Westbrook to stay. And, listen, a lot of people are still saying Paul George is heading out, Carmelo is heading out. There are no guarantees of that. Obviously, I'm sure Westbrook and Paul George have had conversations. Maybe Paul George said, hey, I'll give it a try. If I like it here for the first season, I'll look at signing on an extension. Maybe Westbrook can talk him into staying. But for now, Westbrook is locked up for really the next 6 seasons, as that 5-year contract extension was simply added on to what Westbrook was already going to make this year at the $28.5 million level. It's a lot of money for Westbrook. Congratulations to Westbrook. He has really worked hard and parlayed all of his success and his hard work into quite a number of deals, not only with the Thunder, but with Nike as well, being the face of the Jordan brand. So props to him. Props to Sam Presti for being able to put all this together. Presti really was the one that rolled the dice on all of this, but it was worth doing. Even if they don't get to keep anybody else, even if George walks, Anthony walks, just having Russell Westbrook there for the next 4 or 5 seasons in his prime will keep Oklahoma City relevant and on the map. And maybe in a couple of seasons, when you start getting some draft picks back, they can try to start using that to leverage either other superstars into coming as they become free agents, or maybe even begin to draft some other great players. So props to Clay Bennett, props to Sam Presti, major props to Russell Westbrook for staying. If those of you who are wondering how they're affording all these, the simple answer is they're going to be paying a lot of money into the luxury tax over the next season and maybe even beyond if they truly are going to keep all these players. All right, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Sports and Money. I'm Ben Parker.